Compass installed and watching our project, we're ready to explore the framework and see how it can clean up our HTML. In the videos on Blueprint, we created this very simple layout. Now, you're probably thinking, why would anybody want to go through all the trouble of learning about Compass when Blueprint is so straightforward? Well, there are a few problems with plain vanilla CSS that even a CSS framework like Blueprint cannot overcome. For example, let's take a look at the HTML for this page. In our markup, we're using all sorts of presentational class names like span24 or span12 to define our columns. While this might seem like a smart way of organizing our code, it can actually lead down a very bad, confusing line of development. In fact, the whole point of using CSS and HTML together is to avoid mixing the semantic structure of our content with the visual presentation. When you code using presentational class names like this, you really break all of that. So let's go ahead and take a look at screen.css in a normal Blueprint project. Again, here are all the presentational class names for the grid system right here. Beyond the grid system, however, there are quite a few other presentational class names like small, large, quiet, highlight, added, removed, first, last, and so on. These are a little bit better, but they're very simplistic. There's no real way to set up a color scheme, for example, because while you could use descriptive class names like this, it's still a smart idea to define what it is that they're actually being applied to, such as a background or a border or what have you. So now that we've defined the problem, let's take a look at Sass and Compass again. So we'll go ahead and switch back to our browser. And this is the Compass documentation for the Blueprint module, which you can find at compassstyle.org/docs/reference/blueprint. Let's take a look at the grid system here and see how it can solve some of the issues that we've outlined so far. Now, first off, if you don't like the way Blueprint defines columns, you can very easily reformat the grid using these configurable variables. That, in and of itself, is highly valuable. But let's go ahead and scroll down here a little bit more. Compass provides lots of pre-built Sass mixins for us to use, and when it comes to the grid system, the one that we'll be using the most is the column mixin, which you can see right here. The usage is very simple. You create a selectable page element, typically with an ID or class, and then you apply the column mixin and pass the width of columns that you'd like the column to span, or the element to span rather, and then there's also an optional Boolean value that allows you to set whether or not the column you're selecting is the last in the grid. So, for example, in our previous layout, instead of using the class span followed by a number, you can set an ID on the element and then save the actual column number and other styling for the CSS. The ID can have a more semantic meaning like header or top stories or whatever the div happens to actually contain. So let's go ahead and switch back over to our text editor. And we're going to create a Sass file in the source folder of our project. And we're going to call that file application.scss. Now this file will hold all of our application-specific or project-specific styling. You don't have to call your file application. In fact, you can call it whatever you want. Now is a good time to check that everything is working properly. So inside of our application.scss, we'll go ahead and set the body background to a gray color. We'll go ahead and save that. And then because Compass is watching our project, it should have automatically updated our CSS files. So now all we need to do is open our index file, and we need to link our new style sheet that just got created. So we'll go ahead and just copy and paste our link tag there, and instead of screen, we'll go ahead and name it application. So when we switch over to our browser and refresh the page, you can see that we now have our gray background here, and it looks like we're ready to build a simple layout. Now that we've gone over the benefits of Compass and you know why you should be using it, we're ready to create a simple layout.